Hello and welcome to a video on changing the subject of a formula, or you may also know this as rearranging a formula. Now I'm going to do a few videos on this topic. The first video we're going to look at, we're just going to touch on the basics, and then in the next couple of videos we're going to start to build upon our knowledge and start to look at some slightly more complicated formulae. So I've got three worked examples to go through. The first one, make D the subject, and we've got this formula here, E equals D plus 5. Now, whenever you're asked to make something the subject, the goal is to try and get that variable on its own. So at the moment, you can see with this formula, E is the subject because E is on its own. So if we're making D the subject, we just need to get D on its own. So you can see that at the moment, we're adding 5 to D. We've got D plus 5. So really, we just want to get rid of this plus 5. Now, whenever you're getting rid of something, you always do the opposite. So at the moment, we've got plus 5. To get rid of that, we just do minus 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 5 from the right hand side of our equation, and you can hopefully see that when we do that, we'd just be left with D. But we can't just subtract 5 willy-nilly. Remember, with equations, whatever you do to the right hand side, you have to do exactly the same to the left hand side, otherwise the equation is not balanced. So if we're subtracting 5 from the right, we have to subtract 5 from the left. So what are we left with? Well, on the left hand side, we've just got E minus 5. And on the right hand side, all we're left with is D, because we can see that these 5s cancel out. And you can now see that we have made D the subject because D is on its own. But a lot of people like to put the variable they're making the subject on the left hand side. So I'm just going to switch these two terms around. So my final answer will be D is equal to E minus 5. So this here is my final answer. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. It says make W the subject, and our formula is T equals W divided by 2. So this time we want to get W on its own. Now at the moment we're dividing by 2. So remember, to get rid of something we always do the opposite. So the opposite of dividing by 2 is, you guessed it, multiply by 2. So if I multiply the right hand side by 2, that will get rid of the 2's. But remember again, whatever we do to the right hand side, we have to do the same to the left hand side. So I'm going to multiply the left hand side by 2 as well. So on the left hand side, we've got 2 times t, or t times 2, whichever way round. Well, that will just give us 2t. And on the right hand side, we're just left with w, because we know that these two will cancel. And again, I'm just going to switch them round. So my final answer will be w is equal to 2t. And the last example, make x the subject, and we've got y equals 3x. So this time we're getting x on its own. So what this means here, this means 3 times x. So you can see that we're multiplying x by 3. So we do the opposite. We need to divide by 3. So I'm going to divide the right hand side by 3, and I'm going to divide the left hand side by 3. So on the left hand side, we've got y divided by 3. I'm not going to write y divided by 3. I'm going to write y over 3. Remember, in algebra, we don't use the division symbol. We just use a fraction to represent division. So that's the left hand side. On the right hand side, all we're left with is x. So my final answer will be x is equal to y over 3. So now I've gone through these examples, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 9 questions for you to have a go at yourself. So here are the 9 questions for you to have a go at. Now for all of these questions, the variable that you have to make the subject is in blue. So for example, this formula here, what you need to do is you need to rearrange this formula to make C the subject. So pause the video and have a go at these 9 questions. Okay, let's go through the answers now. So the first one, we've got A equals C minus W, and we need to make C the subject. So we need to get C on its own. Now at the moment, you can see that we've got this minus W here. So we want to get rid of that minus W. So we do the opposite. Well, the opposite of minus W is plus W. So I'm going to add W to both sides. So on the left hand side, we've got A plus W. And that equals, on the right hand side, we're just left with C. So I'm just going to put C on the left hand side. So my final answer will be C is equal to A plus W. Question 2, 5 equals W divided by A, and we need to make W the subject. So we are dividing by A. So we do the opposite, which is multiply by A. So I'm going to multiply both sides by A. On the left hand side, we've got 5A. And on the right hand side, we're just left with W. So my final answer is W is equal to 5A. Question 3, x plus y equals 1, and we need to make y the subject. So at the moment we're adding x to y, so we need to subtract x to get y on its own. So if I subtract x from the left, I need to subtract x from the right. So on the left hand side, well, x minus x, those cancel, so we're just left with y, which is what we wanted. And on the right hand side, we've got 1 minus x. So we've already got the variable on the left hand side, so that will be my final answer. Question 4, h equals 10g, and we need to make g the subject. So at the moment we are multiplying by 10, that's what this means. So to get g on its own, we need to do the opposite, which is divide by 10. So I'm going to divide both sides by 10. So on the right hand side, I've got h over 10, and on the left hand side, well, I'm just going to be left with g. I'm just going to switch these round, so my final answer is g is equal to h over 10. Question 5, 4 equals q plus n, and we have to make q the subject. So at the moment we're adding n, so we do the opposite, which is minus n. On the left hand side, well, we've just got 4 minus n, and on the right hand side, we've just got q. So my final answer will be q is equal to 4 minus n. Question 6, y equals s minus 7, that's an s, not a 5, and we have to make s the subject. So at the moment we're subtracting 7, so the opposite of subtracting 7 is to add 7. On the left hand side we've got y plus 7, and on the right hand side we've just got s, so my final answer will be s is equal to y plus 7. Question 7, 100 plus f equals c, and we need to make f the subject. So at the moment we're adding 100 to f, so we need to subtract 100. On the left hand side we're just going to be left with f, and on the right hand side we've got c minus 100, and again we don't need to switch these around because we've already got f on the left hand side. Question 8, y is equal to k divided by w, and we need to make k the subject. So at the moment we're dividing by w, so to get rid of that w we do the opposite, which is to multiply it by w. So the left hand side, y times w, that's just wy. You could write yw, the order doesn't really matter. And on the right hand side we're just going to be left with k. So the final answer is k is equal to wy. If you did put k equals yw, that would still be correct. And finally, last but not least, we've got question 9, which is 6d is equal to minus 5a, and we need to make d the subject. So at the moment we are multiplying by 6, the d. So to get rid of that 6, we just need to divide by 6. So I'm going to be left with d on the left hand side, and on the right hand side I've got negative 5a divided by 6. Well, that's just negative 5 over 6a. You could also write negative 5a over 6. That would also be correct. Now, with all of the questions that we've gone through in this video, we've only needed one step to get to our final answer. So in the next video, we're going to look at some slightly more complicated questions which involve 2 and possibly even 3 steps to rearrange. So hopefully you'll join me for that video, and thanks again for watching. Take care.